There is a specific kind of person who doesn't just walk into your life. They invade it. They arrive with an intensity that feels like destiny, but it's actually a scan. They aren't looking for a partner. They're looking for a vacancy. And if you've been attracting them your whole life, it's not because you're a good person. It's because you've accidentally optimized your personality to be the perfect host for a predator. You didn't just pass the audition, you provided the stage. This isn't about being too kind or too empathetic. It's about something far more specific. Narcissists don't target everyone. They target the people whose psychological wiring fits their pathology, like a key fits a lock. And if you keep attracting them, if this has happened more than once, if the pattern feels compulsive and familiar, the question isn't, why do they find me? The question is, what signal am I sending that they can read and I can't? Psychologist Craig Malkin, who has studied narcissistic relationships extensively, describes this dynamic as complementary trauma, the phenomenon where one person's survival strategy becomes the perfect counterpart to another person's pathology. The narcissist needs to occupy all the space in the room, and the person they choose has spent years learning not to take up any. That's not coincidence. That's pattern recognition. The narcissist scans a room and finds the person who's already halfway to disappearing, the person who apologizes for existing, the person whose boundaries are porous enough to test. And here's what nobody tells you. Those tests start immediately. The first boundary violation is always small. They show up late. They make a joke at your expense and watch to see if you laugh. They cancel plans last minute and gauge your reaction. They ask for something unreasonable, not because they actually need it, but because they're measuring how much discomfort you'll tolerate to keep things smooth. Most people don't recognize these moments as auditions. They think they're being flexible, accommodating, not making a big deal out of small things. But the narcissist is logging every concession, every moment you swallow your irritation, every time you choose their comfort over your boundary. Because here's the thing, if you call it out, if you say, "That's not okay," in a way that's calm and non-negotiable, the narcissist loses interest almost immediately. Not because you offended them, because you're no longer useful. They don't want someone who pushes back. They want someone who absorbs, someone whose instinct, when things feel off, is to examine themselves rather than the situation. Someone who's been trained, long before this relationship started, to believe that their job is to manage other people's emotional weather. This is what therapists sometimes call echoism, the psychological inverse of narcissism, where the narcissist demands to be the center. The echoist has learned to be the edge, to reflect, not assert, to stabilize, not disrupt. And that adaptation, which probably kept you safe once, in a childhood where taking up space felt dangerous, is exactly what makes you visible to someone looking for a mirror. And this is the part nobody wants to say out loud. The reason the connection feels so powerful at the beginning isn't love. It's neurological hijacking. Narcissists are experts at what researchers call love bombing, the deliberate flooding of attention, affection, and intensity, designed to create dependency before the person has time to assess whether any of it is real. And if you're someone whose self-worth has always been externally sourced, if you've spent years waiting for someone else to confirm that you matter, that flood doesn't feel manipulative. It feels like finally being found. The brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, the same neurochemicals involved in bonding, in attachment, in the feeling that this person is uniquely meant for you. And because the intensity is so high, so fast, the crash when it's withdrawn is devastating. Not because you're weak, because the nervous system was chemically conditioned to associate this person with safety, validation, and worth. And when that gets taken away, when the narcissist shifts from idealization to devaluation, as they inevitably do, you don't just miss them. You go into withdrawal. And here's the cruel irony. The people most likely to attract narcissists are often the same people who find healthy relationships boring. Not because they don't want stability, but because their nervous system was wired in chaos. The brain learned very early that love comes with conditions, that attention is unpredictable, that safety is something you have to earn, again and again, by being good enough, accommodating enough, invisible enough. So when someone shows up who's calm, consistent, emotionally available, the brain doesn't recognize it as safety. It registers it as flatness. As the absence of the high-stakes intensity, the nervous system was taught to call connection. That's not chemistry. That's trauma reenactment. The brain trying to resolve an old wound by finding someone who recreates it. The first time it happens, you call it a coincidence. The third time, you start to wonder. The fifth time, and for some people there is a fifth time, you stop blaming the other person entirely and start asking a question that's much harder to sit with. What is it about me that keeps finding this? It's the part of them that's been broadcasting availability to people who need someone to erase themselves. And that realization is brutal. But it's also the only way out. Because the narcissist doesn't choose you randomly. They choose you because you've spent years practicing the exact role they need filled. The one who smooths things over, who apologizes before they've even figured out what went wrong, who has a very sophisticated internal system for explaining away the thing they saw clearly the first time and talked themselves out of. And until you stop auditioning for that role, until the instinct to smooth things over becomes less powerful than the instinct to protect yourself, the pattern doesn't change. The people change. The dynamic doesn't. But here's what changes everything. The cycle only ends when your boundary becomes more expensive than the narcissist is willing to pay. The moment you stop apologizing for the space you occupy, you become invisible to them. Not because you've changed who you are, because you've stopped broadcasting the signal they're tuned to detect. That is the goal. If this video felt like someone finally looked under the hood of your life and named the part that's been malfunctioning, subscribe. We don't do comfort here. We do the uncomfortable analysis that leads to freedom. Leave a comment with the word visible if you're ready to stop being someone else's echo. And subscribe. We're not done pulling at this thread.